Hey everybody, welcome. We're going to give people a couple more seconds to roll in. I know some of you are just finishing work. Some of you, it's later at night. You just finished dinner. Wherever you're coming from, thank you for being here. And hopefully you're excited to dig into onX Offroad 101 Mastering the App. Whether you just downloaded it 5 minutes ago or you've been playing around with it a little bit, I hope you leave tonight feeling very well equipped to find some adventure for yourself and get out there on some cool off-road trails. So thank you for being here. All right, let's get into it. So I am Adam Zolak. I am your host for tonight. Hello. You can find me on the internet as Bantha Overland, and I travel around in my truck and my truck camper you can see here. And I love traveling with my adventure buddy Val there in the center, and often some friends, new or old. I just think there's nothing better than being in the middle of nowhere with some good company. And so hopefully I will see you out there on the trail as well, and this helps you get out there as well. I see some of you already starting to put things in the chat. If you want to share where you're from, please go ahead and do that. You'll see chat at the bottom. You can let us know where you're joining from. Let us know what your ride is and anything else you love to do. If you love mountains or lakes or whatever you want to share. It's always fun to sort of connect and see people that might be joining from places near you. And, I'm personally on a mission to inspire and enable more of you to get out there more often around the campfire, on the trail. You can learn more about me on YouTube or Instagram at Bantha Overland, but we are here to talk about onX Offroad. So we're going to go ahead and get into it. Oh man, I see Texas, Colorado, Wyoming, Wisconsin, Arizona, Oregon. Yeah, everywhere. Anybody in Pennsylvania? Yeah, there you go, PA. Yep, I'm visiting some family in PA right now. All right. So wherever you are, the cool thing about onX Offroad is there's over 650,000 miles of off-road trails. And if you don't know how much that is, I heard this statistic recently. The national forests in the United States, which you probably are like, there's a lot of forest roads if you've ever been on them, right? It's just over like 300,000 miles of off-road trails. So in the United States, Canada, and Baja, it's a ton of trails. This is one of the things I love about onX. And it's cool because it's so varied, right? Like this is my rig in Pennsylvania, right? In the fall, checking out some leaves, a nice casual, right, gravel road. This is exploring the rocky deserts, right? And crazy rock formations, right? Or some of us love getting on top of a mountaintop and maybe combining it with some dispersed camping. And so there's just so much variety in that 650,000 miles. And I really want to help you figure out how to find the adventure you're looking for to figure out which trails and which areas you want to explore. So hopefully when you leave here tonight, you go and find that place you want to explore and you get out there and have some fun. All right, so tonight we're going to talk about three things to help you master onX Offroad. Find, plan, go. So finding is going to be all about finding our playgrounds, public lands, places we're allowed to play. We can off-road and we can also do other things we might like to do, like hike or fish or camp or things like that. We're going to talk about planning once we find some trails in an area that seems cool. So we're going to get into the details of how do you mark waypoints and places you want to visit? How do you make a route? How do you organize that with folders to collaborate with other folks you might be going with? And also offline maps so that you have all of that information with you, even if you don't have a connection. And we'll also talk about some layers you can use to really dial in your planning and check conditions to make sure you're going to be safe and you're going to enjoy yourself. And then lastly, we'll talk about go, right? Like getting out there, navigating, driving, recording your track. So we're going to go ahead and get into it. I did want to let you know, I see all of you in there in chat. We also have a Q&A section. So if you look at the bottom, you'll see Q&A. We have some great, really smart onX Offroad staff on tonight, and they'll be able to answer all your questions. So if you have a question about something I'm talking about, question about something I didn't talk about, put your question in there. We'll make sure it gets answered tonight. Also, I encourage you to follow along. So if you have your iPhone or your iPad or your laptop or web browser, whatever, follow along. This session will be recorded. It'll be posted on YouTube tomorrow. So if you want to go back and look at the recording and sort of rewind and practice something or really revisit something that you just didn't quite get, you can go back to that recording on YouTube. I encourage you to get out your device and follow along. And I'll be showing both my phone, some things from my truck, which I've recorded, and also using web. So you'll see onX in all the different ways you can use it. All right, let's do it. onX Offroad time, enough talking. Let's go ahead and get in the app. So I'm going to start here on onX Offroad Web. So this is just in a web browser. I'm logged into onX, and I like to start here because this is often where I plan and find places that I want to explore. And I do that just because my screen's a little bit bigger, but you can do this on your iPhone. You can do this on your iPad. You can do this on your Android phone or your Android tablet. And I'll show you how to do some of this stuff on my phone in a little bit. And sometimes it's actually a lot easier on my phone. So I want to show you some tips and tricks you can use on your phone to do this. So of course, when you open up onX, right, it's a map-based experience. So we're staring at a map. Now, my home base is near Denver, and I don't have my location turned on here. But you're normally going to see your blue dot, right? That's the thing about onX. It always lets us know where we're standing, where we're driving, and it helps us to understand if we're allowed to be there. So if you know anything about Denver, if you start, panning the map over here a little bit, you're going to start to see different colors because we're getting into the mountains, and some of this is public land. And if you're, not super familiar with the map controls, I'm using a trackpad, so you can always pinch in and pinch out. You can use a mouse to do this. You can also use these buttons over here, right? Minus, plus, so basic map controls. If you're on your phone, which we'll see in a minute, you can just pinch and zoom with your fingers. But as I go over here to the west and I zoom out a little bit, we start to see different colors. And one of the things I love about onX is if you're ever curious what something is, you can click on pretty much anything and get information, right? So we see that this says Arapahoe National Forest, but if I click on it, it'll also tell me who owns the land. It'll say Arapahoe National Forest, its size, right? The ranger district. This can be super useful if you want to call up a ranger and ask a question or even visit their website. And you can do this all over onX. You can come up here and click on, hey, what's this yellow color? Right? It's BLM, right? Another kind of land that's often our playground. And there's all sorts of stuff. There's national parks, right? There's state parks. And so it can be really useful to just click around on the map and you can get more information about that land, right? Another thing you can do is you can click on these brightly colored lines, which, what are they, right? They're the thing we're all here for. They're off-road trails. So as I zoom in, you'll see actually some more of these trails come in here, right? These colored trails are off-road trails. In fact, every place that you're allowed to drive in a motorized vehicle is on this map, right? We see interstates down here. We see, I think this is US Route 6 down here, right? We see streets that are probably in neighborhoods, and then we see roads that are in forest, and these are the off-road trails. And there's a couple different colors of these trails, right? So there's some of these sort of white or cream trails, right? This is a forest road, Mammoth Gulch Road in the Boulder Ranger District, right, of this forest, and you're allowed to be there, right? That's one of the things that's so awesome about onX. They take data from hundreds and hundreds of land managing agencies, the U.S. Forest Service, BLM, state, local government, federal, and they combine it all into a single base map where you just have these roads. You don't have to turn a layer on. You don't have to, whatever. It's just there for you. So this is one of the things I always like to tell people about, right? It's just that confidence that you're allowed to explore somewhere if you're going to explore it, right? And then we get into these green trails, these blue trails, these black trails. If anyone here is a skier or a snowboarder, right, it's very similar. Green are easier trails, blue are sort of intermediate trails, black are even harder trails. And as you come into the map, this just lets you quickly see like, oh, is this trail going to be easier, a little bit harder, or really hard? And, for some of us, we want to stick to sort of greens, right? We're like, oh, I just want something easy, right? For some of us, we want to stick to blacks. We're like, oh, I really just want hard stuff. Everybody's adventure is different. And so you can use this information to find the adventure that's right for you. So you might wonder, well, Adam, how the heck should I know that, if you weren't telling me? If you ever want to come on the map and look up the legend like you would on a paper map, I'll show you how to do that. So over here, this is the layers button, and we're going to come back to this many times tonight to look at the base maps and some different layers. But if you click on layers, up here on the right, it says map legend. And if you click on that, you'll get the map legend. And this will just tell you the same things I just told you, right? These are the motorized trails. Green is a little bit easier, blue is a little bit harder, black is the hardest. There's even red, which is sort of crazy. And we'll dig into this here in a minute. I'll show you an easy trail. We'll talk about what this difficulty is all about and where you might want to dive in. You can even see cool stuff like this. Like if you were looking at, a road on this map and you were curious, if it was high clearance, it would be a double dash line, right? Or you can even see what I was showing you before about who owns the land. So Forest Service is generally going to be some shade of green. Bureau of Land Management is going to be yellow, or you can always click on the map. So that's sort of like a good orientation for the basics of how a map works, but I really want to dig into how to find trails, right? There's a bunch of ways to find trails, and that's what we're all here for. So I want to dig into how do you find a trail. So we already found one way, which was to just browse the map, right? You can just come into the map and you can hit this little location icon to center the map on your location, and you can just browse what's on the map. Or if you wanted to explore a different area, like I want to take us for tonight up here to Pole Mountain in Wyoming. Has anyone been here? Is anyone's backyard Cheyenne or Laramie? This is a cool area I like to use because it shows a lot of the things I want to talk about to show you how to get the most out of onX. So let's imagine we were located here, we repositioned our map here. Another way that we could check out these trails is we could just start clicking on them. So I'm going to click on this trail. So this is caretakers. So you can see the trail got highlighted over here in orange. And there's lots of information about it. There's the distance, right? 7 miles. There's its elevation. There's its technical rating, which I'll get into in a second, right? There's the best times, spring, summer, fall. So it might get snowy here. Micah Brown submitted it. Thank you, Micah Brown. It's accessible by all vehicle types, from trucks to Jeeps to OHV vehicles, ATVs, motorbikes, things like that. And there's even a description, right? You can start to understand, hey, this is a graded, well-maintained road, right? It provides access to dispersed camping, right? And it just gives you a little bit more information. I'm a very visual person, so I sort of cheat and skip down to the photos. I love coming in here and just looking and saying, hey, what's going on here, right? It's like pretty chill road, some grassy meadows, there's some pine trees, right? Looks like probably a Toyota over there with a rooftop tent. So maybe there's some camping. And Micah even took a picture of the map, which is super cool. And so this information, this description, the difficulty rating, the photos, they're all added by trail guides. And trail guides are community members, onX users who volunteer. They go out there, they put this information on the map. And so, if you ever see a trail like this, which is just this beige color, whoop, sorry, let me go over this one, right? And you're like, hey, someone should go out there and run it. You can sign up to be a trail guide, right? But, a couple things, right? Sometimes these are the funnest trails because you don't know what you're going to get, right? You can also look at the area and say, hey, most of this area is green with a little blue. So I'm guessing these trails, right? These are probably similar, right? They're probably green or occasionally blues. Okay. So let's come back into caretakers here real quick. And you might wonder, well, what is this difficulty about? Well, if you come down here to difficulty rating, there's two things that can help you out. One is you can just read this description. So Micah, the trail guide, wrote this for us. Graded Forest Service road, good condition. Washboards become more apparent after rain or snow, right? So you might be deciding, hey, do I hate that? Do I like that? You can also click on this little question mark here, and you'll get the difficulty. So you can see here what a 1 is, what a 2 is. And so every trail guide uses this to determine how difficult a trail is. And so a lot of this can be about obstacle size, whether that's a rock or a mud hole or ruts or something like that. As these numbers go up, they just start to get a little bit bigger, right? By a difficulty 4, we have obstacles up to 18 inches. And so a lot of times folks will say, hey, where do I start, right? Pick a trail, check it out, maybe a green, right? Do a 1, do a 2, do a 3, do a 4. Just find what kind of trails you love. Like in my big 11,000-pound truck camper, I'm like a 1 to 5 person, maybe sometimes 6. But when I get into 6, my vehicle starts to get hung up on rocks. And so you'll find your own level of adventure. But that's one way to find trails. You can just come in an area and browse what's on the map. Now, let's say you were in this area and you wanted to just sort of browse a little bit more in like a visual format. You can come over here and hit Discover. So you'll see Discover over here. And then when you hit Discover, it'll show you the trails that are closest to where your map is centered. So if I actually move the map like this, it'll say, hey, do you want to research? Because you moved it, right? So I'll say, sure, I want to research. And then you see all these trails. You see a photo, you see the difficulty rating, you see its name and its distance, right? Sometimes you want a little bit longer trail. And so you can come in here, and as you hover over these, you actually see over here, like watch this Blair Wallace Road down here on my map. As I hover over it, we get to see where the trails are. So I can start to see, okay, there might be some trees over here, right? Looks like a little bit more open meadow over here and here. And so you can start to get an idea of an area, and you can also click on those, go into the detail, right? Again, figure out the description, the photos. That looks pretty, right? And find places you might want to explore. And I'll show you how to organize this later, but if you just want to quickly save these things, you can also just sort of bookmark them right here, save to my content. And then when you come back here later, under Save Trails, you can quickly find those trails if you just want to save it real quickly for the day and it's not like a big trip or whatever. So another thing you can do, right? Sometimes people will tell us like, hey, there's this really cool trail you should check out, right? They'll say, oh, there's this really cool trail called Crow Spring Road, right? So you start typing it in search, right? You can also find trails like this. So you click on the trail, it's going to zoom you right into the trail. So search is another great way, in addition to browsing and using Discover, that you can use to find those trails. And the last way that I recommend people find trails is with these filters. So you might be like, let's go zoom out here, right, a little bit. And you might just say, wow, there's like a lot of trails down here in Colorado. Which trails do I want to do? Well, maybe you know, hey, I'm looking for a green trail, right? Maybe you've run a few trails and you're like, I just want a green trail. You can come up to here to these filters, right? You can come down here and say, I just want easy, right? Or I just want moderate and easy. Or I also want those not rated trails so I can find my own adventure, right? And so this is a great way, right? If you're looking for a good moderate trail and you want it to be, let's say, a couple miles long, this will probably take you a while, right? You can come in there and filter trail length, right? And now we can just browse all of these trails in Colorado and decide if Slaughterhouse Gulch is the trail for us. And of course, a trail that says Slaughterhouse Gulch must be a hard trail. So one other thing I want to show you when you're here picking a trail, there's this feature called Trail Reports. So if you're on a trail, look for trail reports. You'll see the most recent one here, and you can view them all. And so you can see Brian Jones ran this trail on October 5th, so about a week or two ago, in a Jeep Wrangler. He reported that the trail was open, normal, dusty, with some deterioration in some other people. And he was pretty cool. He took some photos, and we can see fall is alive and well. It looks beautiful, right? We can see some information. We can see his dog. We can see how narrow the trail is, how it's a little bit rocky. And so any onX user can submit a trail report. And so I highly encourage you, as you go out there, submit a trail report for the trails you run. And it really helps other people figure out what were the conditions. Is it open? And it's really cool to see people's photos of vehicles too, because if you saw like my vehicle, you'd be like, I can do that. His big vehicle got here, right? Or you can look at his vehicle and say, oh, does that look like it's lifted on 45s or does it look pretty stock? And you could sort of say, hey, if he did that, I could probably do that. So trail reports are awesome. Check them out if you're going out there on a trail, and please submit them. You can do this from your phone or the web. You just hit add trail report and you just fill out a couple quick pieces of information, and your trail report will be posted, and it'll help all those other people that are going out there. Okay, so at this point, you know, we've talked about how to find cool trails, how to find public land. Now, before we get into super detailed planning, I want to show you a few more things that I really think about when I'm saying, hey, I want to find a cool area to go off-road, right? And one of the things I love, I'm curious, you know, you tell me in chat there what you love, but you know, I love elevation change, right? I like canyons, I like mountains, I like rocks, I like a view, right? I visually want to see something. Like maybe your form of beauty is 2-foot boulders, right? But that's what I love. And so I like to check out the terrain. And so here's that Pole Mountain area again. I'm going to reset all my filters so we can see all the trails again. And one of the things you'll see is as I start zooming in, you actually start to see some of the topographic features, right? You start to see, right, these elevation changes and things labeled mountains. You start to see little lakes or little ponds and drainage, right? And that's because over here in my layers again, I have the topo layer turned on. So detailed elevation and terrain. And make sure you have HD topo turned on. Like just look at the shading. It's like just pops, right? So HD topo is really cool. It really helps you see that elevation change. And I'll just start zooming in and I'll say, well, this area looks pretty cool. Like not only is there an off-road trail here, a green off-road trail, there's some cool rocks, right? There's some drainages. There might be some water here, right? Also, if you're looking for a campground, there's a campground. Also, if you're looking for hiking trails, all of these dotted lines are hiking trails, right? So you can come in here and you can say, oh, what's this? Devil's Playground, right? And you can come in and you can click on it and you get a little bit of information about it. Non-motorized access. It's open for hiking. It's open all year, right? January 1st to December 31st. And you can say, hey, maybe I'll do some hiking along with my off-road adventures. So I love coming in here and saying, this looks like some interesting scenery. The thing that really helps this to pop for me, I love coming in here and changing this layer to satellite. So we're going to come over here to layers again, and we're going to select satellite, high resolution satellite imagery. And we're going to come in here and you can just really start to see these rocks, right? Like I know what I'm going to get if I come here, right? And then my favorite thing to do, I'll show you this on your phone in a second because it's arguably easier on your phone. But if I hit down control, right, and then I use my trackpad here or your mouse to tilt, I can tilt and I can really start to get a sense of this area, right? Like this is what it's going to look like, right? If I am back here driving on this green trail, right? Look at all these really cool rock formations, and you can get right up in there, right? And you can spin around them if you're like, oh, what's the view look like from this way, right? And so I just love using that satellite imagery along with this 3D. So just to show you that once more, right? If you're in here, you come in here, you've turned on your satellite, and then you come in here and you click the 2D button, it'll go into 3D, and then you can zoom in. And if I hold down control, I can pan, I can tilt, I can do all that fun stuff. And so I want to show you how to do that on your phone because I actually just love doing that on my phone. So here's my, excuse me, here's my iPhone. If you have an Android device or a tablet, it'll work just the same way. So I'm here, right? I just come in here and here's Pole Mountain. Now I'm going to show you some tricks as I do this because you can do all sorts of cool little gestures with your fingers. So you could just pinch and zoom, like we could do that to get into Pole Mountain. But the other thing you can do is you can just double tap. So if we just double tap, there you go, right? We're right there in the Pole Mountain. And if you go in too far, right, and you're like, hey, I want to zoom out a little bit, just take two fingers and tap once. So I'm going to take two fingers, tap once, zoom out, double tap, zoom in, two fingers, zoom out. So really, really easy to do that on your phone. Okay, so I'm going to come in here. I'm going to come to my layers, just like on my web browser, right? I'm going to come to satellite. I'm going to turn that layer on. So I'm in here. Here's that rock formation again. I'm going to hit the 2D button to switch to 3D. Boop. There you go. And then this is what I think is so easy. You just take these two fingers and you just tilt, just like this, right? You take these two fingers, you can tilt up and down, you can zoom in, and then if you want to rotate, right? I always think of it sort of like a clock. You just take two fingers and you rotate that clock and you rotate that clock, right? And so with all those gestures, it's really easy to figure out what's going on. And the thing I like to do is just drive the road. And you're like, well, how do I drive the road? I'm not there. Well, right? I just zoom in, right? And I get that tilt just where I want it, just sort of like I was driving. And I just drive the road, right? I'm like, doo doo doo, driving down the road. Oh, what's this? Whoa, that looks cool, right? Oh, looks like there's some hiking trails around it, right? And so you can sort of preview what's going on, right? You can see there's a trailhead here, there's some people parked there, right? And so super useful to just sort of drive along that road and see what's going on. So that's a pretty cool trick. One last thing I want to show you on mobile before I go back to my web browser. If your map ever gets, super weird and you're like, oh, it's all over the place, you can always hit 3D to switch back to 2D. And you can always hit this north up. See this little compass up here? You can always hit that to fix your orientation. So north is pointing up, right? And we're back here. And then if you ever want to measure a distance, I use this all the time because my friends are always like, I'm like, are we at camp yet? And they're like, oh, it's just like another 30 minutes. And, I take my two fingers and I go, oh, it's like 6 miles and we're going 2 miles an hour, right? And so that trick was if you take two fingers, right, and you just plop them down on the map, you'll get the distance between 2 points, right? And so it can be a super quick way if you're just like, oh, how far is that, right? You just want a quick measurement. Two fingers is a great way to get that quick distance. And sometimes I multiply it by like 1.5 or something because roads are pretty squiggly, right? So some tips for how to do this on your iPhone. And, I think some of that is actually even easier on your phone because you just get to use your fingers. So we're back here in web. And if you wanted to, drive the road here in web, very similar thing. You can just come in here and sort of drive the road, zoom in a little bit, and check out what you're going to see. So those are the things I generally do when I'm trying to find a cool area and a cool set of trails that I want to check out. I go, hey, is this place I want to be? Is it going to have some off-road trails for a day, for a weekend, for whatever I'm going for? So now we're going to sort of switch into plan. We're gonna assume, hey, I found this area. I really want to be here. I think it's pretty cool. How do I actually turn this into a plan and remember these things? Because I might not be taking this trip for a day or a week or a month, and I might be trying to share it with other people. Before I do that, I want to show you a little bit more about how I set up onX in my vehicle. You don't have to do it the same way. I just want to show you how I use CarPlay, my phone, and sort of set everything up, and how you can use some of the map controls if you do have an Android Auto or a CarPlay display to really get the most out of onX when you're in your vehicle. When I'm using onX Offroad in my vehicle, I like to have my phone up and I like to have it up on CarPlay or Android Auto if you use Android. I use my phone for a general overview, so you can see I can zoom out very, very wide here and get a general sense of where I am and different points of interest that I might be trying to navigate to. And then I use the head unit here to navigate more specifically and close up. So if I'm looking for a turnoff, a trail, a dispersed campsite, something like that. And something else I like to do is have the satellite with topo map up. So in your base maps, there's the hybrid, and this basically is your satellite with topo. And now you can see it's displayed here on my head unit. Now what I like about this is I can see what's around me. I can see there's trees here, there's a hill here, I can see the contour lines, and I can actually see there's a pull-off up here. So if I was looking for a place to stop or turn around, or maybe check out a dispersed campsite, it can be super helpful to find interesting things that might not be super visible from the road. So you can see here as we drive by that this is indeed a little pull-off, and in a pinch you could use it as a dispersed campsite or something like that. So it can be a super helpful way to just get a sense of what's around you, because sometimes you're just in the trees or you're next to rocks and it can be hard to see what's going on. One other tip, you might want to orient your map in different ways. So right now it's oriented in my direction of travel. If I tap this icon again, I'll get top down. If I tap it once more, I'm going to get north up. And so you can cycle through those three views. So I'm going to show you how this sort of works. So I'm going to drive here, and as I go around this curve, you'll see the map rotates around the direction in which I'm traveling. If I tap it again and get that top-down view, it's going to do a similar thing. It's going to be my direction of travel, but it's going to just be sort of straight down like that. And then I can also tap this if I want to zoom in and zoom out a little bit, see a little bit more terrain. And then I can also tap it once more and get that north up, and tap it once more and get that perspective. And I like this one. This is the one I use the most. It's sort of like a tilt, so I can sort of see the geometry of the terrain a little bit better. I can see if it's going up or down or what's around me. I can see what's ahead a little bit, but the map is always oriented so that I get a preview of what I'm about to see in the next mile of road or so. All right, so that's a little bit about how I use onX in my vehicle. And like I said, you don't have to do that. You don't have to use two devices, but that's how I like to do it a little bit. So hopefully that helps you think about what you would want, and you can experiment a little bit too. All right, so we're going to move into plan. So planning is like, okay, we're going to visit this area. I want to remember some of this stuff, because sometimes, you look at this and then 2 weeks later it gets a little fuzzy, or you get out there and you're like, oh, it'll be so easy. And then there's a trail to your right, there's a trail to your left, there's a fork that goes 4 ways. And you're getting a little lost. And so how do we organize this a little bit to set ourselves up for success? So I'll show you what I do, a couple different things. And one, I'm going to actually take this satellite off and go back to topo. It just makes it a little bit easier for everybody to see here. It's like my trick to simplify the map. But let's say we decided that, hey, we checked out some of these trails. And let's say we decided after looking at these that we wanted to check out this Caretaker's Trail, and we wanted to check out this Crow Springs Trail, right? So I'll often start adding waypoints just to remember these things. And so in the upper right, you have all of these tools. You can build a route, which we'll do in a second. You can add a waypoint. You can also draw lines and areas and add photos. But right now, we're going to look at add a waypoint. So I'm going to click add a waypoint. You're going to see I get my waypoint icon. and I can drag this to wherever I want it. I'm going to put it here at the beginning of caretakers, right? I'm just going to say caretakers 4x4. I'm going to use, let's find a cool icon. 4x4 is pretty good, right? And I like to make everything that I haven't done yet pink. So I make everything I haven't done yet pink. I make everything that I have done teal. And I use yellow specifically for dispersed campsites. Now, you don't have to use these colors, but onX does provide you a variety of colors. And what I would suggest is get consistent with it. Because once you have like hundreds and thousands of waypoints and routes and everything, you'll be really happy that you used icons and colors consistently. And you can actually use colors and icons to filter. So we've had other advanced master classes. So actually every month we have an advanced master class that goes really deep on a topic. And we had one about organizing your map and your data. And one of the things we went over is how you can filter and find things by color, by icon, and things like that. So set yourself up for success, pick a color, pick an icon. I'm also going to use a folder. So down here you see folders. I'm going to hit add, and I'm going to make a new folder. Now, you don't have to do this, but I always do the year, the month I'm going to take the trip. Like if this is going to be November, I do 11, and then I just name it Full Mountain or something that helps me remember it. And we'll talk a little bit more about why folders are so awesome in a minute, but you can see for now it's in a folder. I can hit save, right? Then I might come in here and do a similar thing here with Crow Spring Road, right? And so on and so forth. And it just helps me to remember those things, like I said, in case I forget them. That's the thing I wanted to check out. So same color, same icon. I'm going to put it in the Pole Mountain folder. I'm going to go ahead and save it here, right? And so we're starting to see a plan come together, and then later we'll connect this with a route. Now, I know for many of you, you may go out there to also camp, right? In fact, some of you, like me, might go out there to camp even more than off-roading. Like there's nothing I love more than finding an awesome dispersed campsite with a cool view and some cool things to do. And it's almost like driving the off-road trail is just what I have to do to get there. So I want to share a really cool feature that onX added earlier this year. This used to be super hard and painful, but onX made it super easy, and that's the dispersed camping layer. So if we come over here to layers, right, and we scroll down a little bit to here, see dispersed camping. So you can turn any of these layers on or off by toggling them. So we're going to turn this from off to on and watch all of these roads. You see how they turn yellow? So that means you're allowed to disperse camp there. So this layer identifies roads where you're allowed to disperse camp in US national forests. And before this, you had to look up these really crazy MVOM maps from the Forest Service. onX made it really easy. So now that you've decided, hey, maybe I want to travel on this road, can I camp there too? You can zoom in, you'll actually see the regulation. If you've ever dispersed camped, you're allowed to travel a certain distance off the designated road for the purpose of camping, and you're generally going to be looking for a site that someone else has already used. So onX makes it super easy to have the confidence that you're allowed to be there and camp. So I often have this layer turned on, and I want to show you how I actually use it to find campsites. So now that I've marked a couple trails, I'm actually going to look for campsites along these trails. And you could turn this layer on sooner if you wanted to do this before you pick trails and say, hey, I only want to off-road on trails where I could also camp. So I'm going to zoom in here a little bit. I'm going to go back to satellite. And I'm going to zoom in even a little bit more. And I'm just, again, going to start sort of driving this road. And I'm going to start looking for places that I could potentially disperse camp. Actually, let me start down here where I marked the start. Oh, so if you come in here, right, you'll start to see there's a spur here. There's a spur here that goes in the trees. There's a little dispersed site here where someone probably parked. And so I'll often just start marking potential campsites, right? I will come in here. I will add a waypoint. I will say, dispersed option, whatever you want to say. And then there's a dispersed camp icon you can use, or you can pick a different icon. And like I said, I always use yellow, so all of my campsites are yellow. It just makes it really easy if I'm looking for a campsite knowing that it's yellow. I add it to my folder, I save it, and I just keep doing that, right? I just keep coming in here, looking for some spots. Sometimes the telltale sign is this, right? Like this is someone dispersed camping. Looks like a little travel trailer that's hanging out there. So easy to do here in web. I want to show you how to do this on mobile as well, because some of you, might be using your mobile device to do this. So here I am on my phone. I'm going to come in. You can see those spots that I was previously marking in my web browser. I'm going to come in here. I'm going to hit 2D to go to 3D. I'm going to do that whole pan and tilt and all that stuff I was showing you before. And I'm going to start driving this road, right? There's that travel trailer I just showed you a second ago. I just start driving this road and I just start looking for interesting sites. Now, one of the reasons I do this, like look at this site here, right? It's a little hard to tell, but this site is behind these rocks. So you may be driving down the road, right? And you may be like looking over at this cool thing on the right, and you may totally miss that there's a trail on the left or not see the campsite because it's tucked around some rocks or tucked around some trees. And so sometimes if I think there's a really cool site, I like to mark it, right? Because you think it would be easy to see these things when you're there. That's not always true. So I'm just going to drop my finger there. I'll show you how to do so. Just hold your finger down and you can add a waypoint by doing that. So this is another little mobile trick. Just hold your finger down, right? You can add a waypoint. You can name it if you want. I'm going to skip it just for keeping the class moving. You can pick your color, your icon. You can add it to your folder, right? I'm going to save it, right? And so I just keep driving down the road. Now, I don't do this forever. I normally do this until I find a really cool site, like a site that I think is like like that, right? Like a site that has Mount Doom in front of it. And so you can see there's a little spur here, right? Let me turn on my dispersed camping layer so you can see that we're allowed to be here. So here's that yellow glow. There's this little spur road. Looks like it's within 100 feet, right? That leads to a little circle next to this awesome rock formation, right? I'm going to add a dispersed campsite. I'm going to make it yellow. I'm going to add it to my folder. And I even do this other weird thing. I want to show you this. It's really weird. So there's this sheriff badge icon, and I couldn't figure out, like, there's nothing else I ever do with it. I use this icon for like the dispersed campsites I think are going to be like the best ones on Earth. So my sheriff sites are like the primo campsites. So I just mark these, and you might say, well, why do you mark them all? Do you mark every single site? I don't mark every single site. I try and find areas. I mark a couple sites I think are desirable. And you go to these sites and sometimes they're available and you have the best time ever. Sometimes you go and someone has already occupied the site and they're first come, first serve. Sometimes you go there and it's a mud pit or there's 52 cows that are just mooing and staring at you with a big pile of crap, right? And so that's one of the joys of dispersed camping, but it can be also a little tricky. And so I like to mark a couple different options. Now, we cannot go into all of the things you need to know about motorized dispersed camping tonight. We did an awesome advanced masterclass earlier in the year. So you can go on YouTube and find that recording if you want to learn more. And we also have a great blog post, which will help you understand more about the rules and the regulations and the norms if it's something you haven't done before. So we'll put that link in chat and you can go ahead and read that later if you want to dig in and go a little bit deeper. Okay, so that's part of planning, right? Starting to mark those waypoints, starting to mark potential dispersed campsites and things like that. I also want to show you how to make a route. So, let's say at this point we're like, okay, I think I sort of know what I want to do here, right? Let's make a route. So you could make this route from your house. You can make this route from where the dirt starts. Just to keep it simple, I'm gonna start us here tonight where the dirt starts. And let me turn off this dispersed camping layer. So I'm going to come up here to build a route. So you can see here, build a route. I'm going to click it. And then I'm going to click where I want my route to start. So in this case, I'm going to start it right here. And as I drag my cursor around, it is just going to try and snap to roads I'm allowed to be on. So if I wanted to come up here in Crow Springs, it's going to follow. And then at some point, I may just click, right? And I'll just add one of these markers, and that'll just say, hey, I want to go to that point. And you can come in here and add a few points just to give onX, a hint about what you want to do, right? So maybe I want to come up here and I want to try this blue trail. Then I'm going to come back down here, right, to Blair Wallace Road. And so you can just come through here and click. And again, we're not going to go through everything tonight, but there's tools for snapping. If you wanted to draw a straight line for some reason, you can do that. You can undo, you can edit it, all sorts of stuff. But I generally will draw a route from pavement, from dirt to dirt. So let's get back here to I-80. There's a cool bust of President Lincoln here if you haven't seen it. And that's my route. So I might name my route. I might say day one. Distance is 31 miles. So I can say, does that feel like a good amount of distance? I'm doing more easy roads. So it's probably good. Again, I'm going to make it that pink color that I always use. You can change the line weight and dash it and do all sorts of stuff. I'm going to keep it there and add it to my folder. So there we go. I've added a route. And so at that point, we have some waypoints, right? We have some places we're going to camp. You could also mark hikes and stuff. We have the route we're going to drive on off-road. And so we're starting to have, a pretty good plan come together. Now, I want to show you, if you were going out with some other people, how you could share this. So for the last, couple minutes, I've been saying, hey, put everything in a folder, put everything in a folder. If you come over to my content over here on the left, and you come to the folder for Pole Mountain, and you come in here, you'll see, right, that we have all of our things in it. And if we want to share that, we can come in here and hit share, right? And if we hit share, we get two options. We get view only and contribute. So view only means you can share this with other people. They'll be able to see it, but they won't be able to make changes to it. Contribute means that they'll be able to add waypoints. They'll be able to add routes. They won't be able to change the things that you added, but they'll be able to add new things. And so when I'm going out with friends, I will often use contribute, and I'll hit share, and you just get a link, and then you can share it via text or WhatsApp or however it is that you share stuff, and they'll be able to see the same things on their map. And as you add stuff and they add stuff, you'll all see it. So folders are super useful for that. You can also come in folders and hide the folder on the map, show the folder on the map. There's all sorts of stuff. We're not going to get into it tonight, but check out the advanced master classes if you're interested. All right, so that's folders. At this point, right, we're starting to get into thinking about going. But there's a couple more things I want to show you that sometimes I check when I'm planning, or sometimes I check right before I'm leaving. So one of those things is I come in here and I'll turn on private lands, right? And actually, again, I'm going to come back in here and go to topo just to make the map a little simpler. I'm going to turn on private land. And so when I turn this on, you see all these red boxes. And let me zoom in a little bit, right? We see red boxes. We see names like Mountain Land and Cattle Company, right? Well, what are these, right? Well, these are the people that own private land holdings. And so, if we're ever coming in here and saying, oh, looks like maybe there's a road, should I go on that road? I mean, one thing to tell you is that it's grayed out, it's sort of ghosted, so that's generally a closed road, right? But we can also see that this is privately held land, and so we probably are not going to be able to drive through here. And so turning on this private land layer is super useful, especially if there's in-holdings. So in some forests, there will be all sorts of in-holdings. Like, let me show you an example down here more in Denver, where I know there are some. Like, you come in here in this forest, and there are just like all of these in-holdings. Like, look at all these people that own in-holdings in this forest, right? And so you don't want to be on someone's private land. You want to know where you're standing, you're driving. And so that private land layer can be super useful. If you do not see this here, this is an elite feature. So you might have onX Premium. This is the next tier, onX Elite, that has this private land layer. Another thing I want to show you that's an elite that I often use to sort of finish up planning is this recent imagery. So I'm going to turn on this recent imagery. It's one of the layers. And this is one of my favorite things in onX. I'm going to come in here. I'm going to zoom in. And you're going to notice it looks a little bit fuzzy. And that's because this is satellite imagery that's refreshed every 2 weeks. And it goes back years. So if you were wondering, hey, does it snow in this area? I noticed some of the trails said the best time of the year was not the winter. You can turn on recent imagery, and down here you'll see we have dates, right? So you can sort of go backwards like this if you want, but I'm actually going to click all dates, and I'm going to go all the way back to about this time last year, and then I'm going to go forward and see if we see any snow. And you see that? So it looks like late October to the first half of November, no snow, right? First half of November, snow, a little bit less snow, right? Ton of snow in January. And so this can be a really useful way to figure out, when does the snow come? When does the snow melt? You can go back 2 years and compare years, because snowpack's different between years. And actually, in the last master class we did, I showed how you can do this for leaf peeping, right? So if you want to figure out when the leaves change in a place where there's really good fall colors, you can use the recent imagery layer to go in there and say, hey, when does it look like the trees go from green to yellow and red and all those cool colors and then fall off the trees? And so if you want to use that feature, turn on recent imagery. Again, if you do not have Elite, this is an Elite feature. So if you have Premium, you might see this as locked or you can't use it. Okay. So we've gone over lots of things in terms of planning. Now I want to talk about a few things before we go. So probably the most important thing, you can do in onX is make an offline map. It just makes sure that all of this work you did to figure out where you want to go and add routes and add waypoints is with you, even if you don't have connectivity. And so I'm going to come over here to offline maps on the left. I'm going to hit, I'm actually going to delete this. This is an old one. I don't want to confuse anybody. I'm going to hit new offline map, and I'm going to get a box. And I'm going to put the area that I want to explore in the box, and then I can zoom in and add a little bit if I need to sort of get it in the box. And then it's going to ask me to pick a resolution. And this confuses some people. So it says choose satellite imagery detail, and it says low, medium, high. And you're sort of scratching your head and you're like, what do I need, Adam? So offline maps are always going to include certain things. So actually, let me get out of here and I'll show you what it always includes. So your offline map is always going to include your topo map, right? That's this layer that we're looking at, the green layer with the terrain shading and the rivers and the hiking trails and the roads. You're always going to get that. You're always going to get the routes you create. You're always going to get the waypoints you create. The only thing you are picking when you make an offline map is the satellite imagery, right? So this is if you are out here in Pole Mountain and you go to that cool campsite you want it to be at, and you went to the second one and the third one, and they were all unavailable for some reason, and you wanted satellite imagery offline to continue looking for dispersed campsites or something like that, this is why it matters, right? So I normally pick medium. That's enough resolution for me to see a dispersed campsite, to see an off-road trail. If you're trying to really save space, you could try low and see if it works. If you had a special use case, you could pick high. I pick medium. I name this the area again, Pole Mountain, and then I hit save. Now, you're not done. And that's what this is telling us. So we made the offline map. We have to go download it. So normally I will go download this on my phone, and my wife will be logged into our account, and they'll say, hey, can you go download the offline maps in case something happens to my phone because I have broken or lost my phone. And so I want to go to my phone and show you how you can download this offline map. So let's bring up my phone again. Okay, so we got my phone. I'm in Pole Mountain, and if I come down here to offline maps, you'll see I have this offline map, right? And you see how there's an arrow? Just tap that, and it will start to download. It's downloading pretty good. I suggest doing this at home or when you're on Wi-Fi at a restaurant or something like that. And we'll see here in a second that it's done, green. So green means good, check means good. And you see this green box. So you see there's a green box, green means good. So for some reason, this map wasn't downloaded. Let me show you what that looks like. I'm just gonna remove the download for the sake of letting you know what it looks like. You see this dashed red line? Not good. This means your offline map, it is defined, but it's not on this device, right? So you got to come in here, hit that download, right? Again, it should be pretty quick, and you'll get that offline map. And then when you're out there, you're good to go. And you'll have all of the data, all of the satellite imagery, everything you need. And if you're ever having trouble, like if it seems like your offline data isn't loading for some reason, a really cool trick is this go offline button. If you tap this, it basically just forces your phone to go offline, even if you have a little bit of connection. And that way it'll just force it to use that offline data. So that's a really cool trick. Go offline if you're just having trouble where it's going, you're having a connection and not, and connection and not, and it's just sort of getting a little weird. Okay. So that is Go. A couple other things I want to show you I do before I go out there. One is there's some other layers that can be helpful. So I'm going to come over here to layers again. And we're not going to go through all these tonight. We do have a master class that goes through every one of these in detail. But sometimes before I'm leaving on a trip, I might want to say, hey, is there precipitation? What's the temperature? You can come in here and look at the temperature. And this can be really useful too if you're looking for like sometimes around this time of year, people are looking for warmer climates, right? So you might say, hey, maybe I'll go to New Mexico, right? Temperature can be useful. Active wildfire smoke. Turn these on a lot when it's a little bit more wildfire season, but you can see right now, I didn't even know this. Look, there's actually quite a few wildfires in Alabama and Louisiana, which is a bummer. So some of those could be, and there's some fires up here in Washington, right? And so this can be really useful to figure out, hey, where is there a fire, right? And you can see the fire boundary. So for example, here, we can see the Labor Mountain Fire. Here's the fire boundary. These dots are actually satellite detected hotspots. So this is where the fire is likely burning, which can be really useful information to add to that fire boundary. And then we can see the smoke. So we can see, for example, up here, in this fire. There is a lot of smoke that is sort of coming up here going towards Canada. And so that may be a problem. That may be an area you want to avoid. So I'll often look at the active wildfire and wildfire smoke layers. And one last thing, I guess we didn't talk about it during planning, but sometimes you are trying to figure out, hey, do I think I'm going to have connectivity? And so there are all these cell phone layers, which are really great to say, hey, I'm coming to Pole Mountain right here. I have AT&T. Do I think I'm going to have coverage, or T-Mobile, right? And what'll happen is I have Verizon. So let's look at that. As you zoom in here, you'll actually see more information. So you can see in this area where we're going to camp, right? It says we might have 4G. Over here, it's going to be voice only. Well, if I was coming up here for a long weekend and trying to maybe work on Friday, I might use this information to try and go to an area where there's a better likelihood of me having coverage. Or I may use this information to say, hey, I want to be off grid this weekend. I'm going to come here on Blair Wallace Road and try and find some camping there because it looks like there's no signal, right? So that cell phone layer can be super useful as well. Okay. The last two things I want to show you, I cannot show you because I'm not in my truck, so I made videos. The first of those is navigation. And so navigation is a really new cool feature in onX, where previously you had to use multiple navigation apps, right? One on pavement, one off-road. Now you can do everything in onX with this plan that we're putting together right here in the app. So I want to show you how that works. So one of the cool things you can do in the app is if you know you want to start your trip, you can pull up that waypoint or route and you can hit navigate. And in the past, you've been able to navigate using Apple Maps or Google Maps, but there's a new option for onX navigation. And if you select that, it'll give you turn-by-turn directions, on-road and off-road, which is really cool because a lot of mapping services do not work very well when you get off-road as well. And so if I wanted to go ahead and follow this route, I'd hit go.
Head north on Harlan Way, then turn right onto West 76th Avenue.
And so you can hear the prompts. And so you can zoom in, you can zoom out. If you pop this up, you can look at the detailed directions if you need to see that. And then you can also preview the route. And then you can always also sort of switch between your heads up zoomed in view and the total route view like this. And then you can also switch your orientation. So if you want your direction facing north versus north facing north, you can do that. You can toggle the sound on and off. And so you get your written instruction and you get your audio instruction. And so if you just have a phone, you can go ahead and use your phone. It also works in landscape, which is nice. I happen to have CarPlay, and so I'm going to go ahead and show you what that looks like here on CarPlay, and I'll drive around a little bit so we can see this in action.
In less than half a mile, turn right onto Sheridan Boulevard.
And one thing I like to do sometimes too, like if I'm passing a trailhead or a campsite I might want to check out later, I'll use this mark button, and you can use it to either start recording a track or mark my location. So I'm going to mark my location, and you'll see it drops a waypoint right there, and it just makes it really easy for me to go back later in the app, and I can update it and say it was a campsite or whatever. But a lot of times that's how I mark my campsites, because I just find cool campsites as I drive by it, or maybe a trailhead I want to visit the next day.
Onto West 74th Place, then turn left onto Kendall Street. Turn left onto Kendall
And so
Street.
it can be a great feature. Now, you may be thinking to yourself, why in the world do I need off-road navigation? Again, when you're out there, right, it can be busier and more confusing than you thought it would be if there's a lot of trails. And sometimes it can help you get out of trouble. I was in western Wyoming once, and I was about 60 miles off-road, and I went to go up a bank, and it was just mud and snow. It ruined my plan, and I did not have an alternate plan. So I used onX to find the nearest pavement, and I dropped a waypoint, and I just navigated to that waypoint. And there were just hundreds of trails. I didn't know which one to pick, and onX helped me to find a way back to safety. And so navigation can be used both proactively and reactively. If you just need to get out of where you are or find an alternate route, it can be really good for that. Okay, so the last thing I want to show you is go and track. And so there have been some good questions in chat about how do I record, where I've been so I can remember it. share it later, things like that. And I want to show you how you can record that while you're driving.
When you're out there in the trail, I highly suggest recording where you've been. It can be super helpful if you want to revisit a place, share it with a friend who's looking for a recommendation, or just figure out where the heck you came from in case you need to backtrack. It can be especially helpful in situations where there's a lot of trails and you can get lost. So you can see here on my phone, I can hit go and track, and I can hit record track. Now I'm actually going to show you how I can do this here on my CarPlay head unit, but let me show you how this works first here. So we hit record and track, and then we start driving. And you'll see as I drive, it'll start recording where I'm going with these little red dots here. It'll show me the time, the duration, the distance, the elevation as it changes. And I can always pause this or stop this if I need to. So I'm going to stop here, and I'm going to go ahead and pause this. And I just hit end. And so when you do that, you can give it a name, and then you can resume it if it was a mistake, look at your stats, or save it. If you want to do the same thing here on CarPlay, you can hit this icon in the lower right, and this is where you can drop a pin, like a cool campsite or a place you want to go visit later, or you can hit start tracking. And if you hit start tracking, the same thing will happen. It'll start tracking here, it'll start tracking here, and as we drive, you'll start to see those red dots again. So, super handy for a variety of reasons, and I highly suggest you go and track when you're out there on the trail.
All right, so that's how you use Go and Track, and I try and record all my trails. You never know. Sometimes you have to backtrack out. Sometimes you want to share it with a friend. So I think it's just pretty darn useful. All right, so we went through Find, Plan, Go. Those are the basics. Like I said, we do have an advanced masterclass every month. So if you want to dive in, the next one is November 6th. We're going to talk about sharing trails and sharing thanks as we come into the Thanksgiving holiday season, how to collaborate on trips with friends and really go on trips together. So if you want to get into all the nitty-gritty of sharing and folders and collaborating, join that advanced masterclass. And don't forget, this recording will be on YouTube tomorrow if you'd like to go back and check out any of the things we did tonight, practice on your device and things like that. If you have any final questions, go ahead and put them in the Q&A. Otherwise, thank you so much for joining, and I really do hope to see you out on the trail, and I hope this information helps you to plan your next adventure. See you out there. Bye.